It's October 22nd, 2023, and you've rolled through the credits of Spider-Man 2. The game was released just 2 days ago. You probably shouldn't have rushed through the story, but you couldn't help yourself. The story was a bit of a blast to get through. And 12 hours later, you've completed all the side missions. You probably shouldn't have rushed those either, but you couldn't help yourself. You just wanted to experience everything the game has to offer. And now you return to New York City with the satisfaction of having done it all. You wonder, what else can you do now? After all, you're Spider-Man, and this is your sandbox. A place to swing, fight crime, help the neighborhood. So you engage in the endgame content that the game has to offer. Like maybe another playthrough on New Game Plus. It would be fun to use some of the suits you unlocked in the story, but oh, that's not even an option. Okay, well, guess you're stuck in this New York for a while, but maybe you can... Oh, where can I switch the time and weather? Oh, that's not even out yet. Oh, okay. Well, let's just fight some crime then. Crimes are fun. Okay, some bad guys. You can handle that. You're used to it. Alright, this crime has a bit more bad guys. Great way to challenge you. Now, this crime is just a lot of bad guys fighting each other. And, oh, a more disjoined. And, this guy will take a second. You probably shouldn't have rushed through the game, because after beating the story and side missions of Spider-Man 2, you'll come to find that the world is quite empty. And with features like New Game Plus and changing the time of day absent from the initial release, it's clear Insomniac probably needed a bit more time to polish the game. But Sony likely wanted the game out before the holiday season to boost PS5 sales. So, for the past few months, anyone who has beaten the game only has access to 2 things in the endgame: swinging and crimes. And there's no issue in that. This was the state of the endgame for the previous 2 games, and asking for endless content would be impossible. But after beating the story and swinging around for hours and fighting crime, the gameplay loop gets stale and repetitive fast. Swing, do some tricks, crime alert, fight 8 to 12 bad guys, maybe a bit more, and then swing again. But the problem here isn't swinging. That can be continuously fun, especially with zero swing assist, but the problem is that the crimes are all the same. It's always beat up this gang of bad guys, could be random thugs, the fire cults, Kraven's hunters, or symbiotes, they're all kind of the same, or it's stop this car. And beating up a gang of bad guys can be fun, but after doing it so many times, it just gets a bit boring. Especially with the game's new mechanic where other factions can invade the crime and prolong your completion of it. That's great and all, but sometimes I just don't want to fight this big symbiote guy anymore. I have to use everything in my disposal to fight him, and it's not even an exciting fight because I can't play around in the air, webbing him up means nothing, and a lot of my punches don't even stagger him. It takes me over 25 punches to knock him out. I counted, and it only takes him 3 of his hits to take me out. It's not enjoyable, and it really grinds down the pace of some of these combat sequences. So, when it comes to the development of Spider-Man 3, Insomniac has some work to do to make its New York City a bit more alive and vibrant in the post-game, especially with its crime and activity scene, and I have a few suggestions on how it can be improved. Now, keep in mind, I am not a developer, I don't know a single thing about programming, and I'm not sure what the limitations are for the current Spider-Man code used in the games. What I am sure of though is that the talented developers at Insomniac could try to make some of these ideas work to some extent. After all, we're trying to create the ultimate Spider-Man experience, just like how Batman Arkham Knight nailed the best Batman experience. I mentioned the endgame content consists of swinging and crimes. There are some videos on YouTube, especially these ones by Darkspace and Colin. They already nail how Insomniac can improve Spider-Man swinging. I highly recommend checking out their videos and their channels. They're doing some amazing work. But since swinging has already been covered, let's talk about crimes. In the current version of the game, there are only 18 of them. High-speed chase, assault, break-in, armored truck, arms deal, arson, branding attack, tanker strike, hunter chase, hunter patrol, hunter spying, hunter cargo, symbiote horde, rescue shoppers, bus assault, abduction, monster hunt, and burning devils. That might seem like a lot, but let's compare that to the first game. Despite there now being 2 Spider-Men to play as and double the space to play in, there are fewer crimes. This ultimately makes the world feel so empty, and another piece contributing to that is the lack of a police force. In previous games, the police could have shootouts with the demons or raft criminals, or you can find them chasing after some of these runaway cars. However, they are nowhere to be found in this game except for when they do random arrests irrelevant to you. It's almost like they gave up on some of the crimes thinking, oh, well, leave it to Spider-Man. Which, to be fair, if the city was looking like this, I'd probably be thinking the same thing. But this is not how you build a living, breathing, open world, because now each crime happens in isolation, making New York feel like a hollow version of the one we played in the last games. But that's not all. The crimes are also not that stimulating. It's missing some complexity. In previous games, if you arrive at a break-in, enemies might cut their losses and run away from you, or if you come across a hit-and-run accident, you have to save the civilians and then find the car that did the crime. The sequel has some mechanics like that, but it's not truly dynamic. These mechanics being a companion can sometimes help you with a crime, which is such a cool feature. I love that. A civilian is hurt post-crime and you have to deliver them to an ambulance. I love that too, it feels so true to Spider-Man. And you can get waves of enemies coming in after finishing a crime. But this doesn't necessarily make the crimes more fun, it just prolongs them with more fighting. And that's my biggest gripe about the state of the game currently, it's just a lot of combat. It's always a group of bad guys that you have to beat up, which sometimes makes no sense because why are there always 8 guys trying to mug one dude? Or you occasionally face the rare stop or runaway car, which is kind of boring now because of how Insomniac simplified the crime. So the problem isn't just the quantity of the crimes, but the quality of them too. In the Miles Morales game, we had some pretty diverse crime options instead of just simple beat-em-ups. We had supply thefts, where you had to prevent criminals from opening up a truck door. We had cyber attack, where you came across a hacked billboard and you had to disable the terminal hacking it after beating up some goons. We had chopper malfunction, where we had to swing up to a helicopter and then go to the hacking sources and beat up the guys there to stop the malfunction. So Insomniac has proven they can do some more diverse crimes, but instead they just downgraded into beat up this group of 8 guys. Oh no wait, there's hunters and symbiotes here too, and of course everyone's favorite. So I've put together a list of crimes, accidents, and events that could occur in the endgame to help make this world feel more lively and enhance the overall Spider-Man experience. Let's first talk about crimes, and to start, let's assess some crimes that already exist and how we can improve them. The high-speed chase. In the first game, once you zip to the car, each criminal in the car is given a QuickTime event before mashing square to stop the car at the end. But given that Spider-Man is more experienced now, the crime has been massively simplified. In its current state, the high-speed chase involves 2 parts: swinging to get to the car, and the one QuickTime event where you have to press square to stop it. It's gotten pretty boring, so let's add some more random events to occur. For the first part of the crime where you have to catch up to the car, maybe this runaway car will hit some other cars, cause some chaos in the street, and you have to web up the vehicles before they hit any buildings or pedestrians. Sure, it'll kill the momentum of your swing, but that's kind of what the criminals want. This crime shouldn't be just a piece of cake. For the second part of the crime, when you're on top of the car, perhaps there's a random chance that a pedestrian could be crossing the road ahead, and you have to do a QuickTime event to save the pedestrian. It would probably mean that you lose your spot on top of the car and you return to chasing it, but it makes the whole crime feel a lot more dynamic when the chance for a random event to occur exists. There can even be some versions of this crime where you have to chase 2 cars or chase a truck, so there are more things you have to do before you complete the crime. Adding in these variations means making the crime more fun and challenging. The other crime I'd want to reintroduce and improve is the chopper malfunction. In the Miles Morales game, this is a long crime. You have to swing up to the Roxxon helicopter, discover why it's malfunctioning, and then find the 3 hacking sources to stop the Underground's attack. Why not bring back this crime? It doesn't have to be specifically Roxxon in the Underground, it could simply be a news helicopter that is losing control, and as Spider-Man you have to swing to catch up to it and rescue the people within. Throw in some QTEs to ultimately stop the helicopter from crashing, and we've made crimes feel fresh again. Insomniac has done something like this before, and it was one of the most fun missions from the first game, so I'd love to see them reintroduce it as a recurring crime in the next one. That wraps up what I think the games could reintroduce, but let's talk about some new content. Having to beat up multiple criminals at once is fun, but when that's every crime, it gets stale pretty quickly. There are 18 crimes in Spider-Man 2, and all of them surround a group of bad guys, save for the car chases. But why are there no crimes where it's just one bad guy? Whatever happened to the small-time crimes that Spider-Man used to handle in the early days of his career? I know it's not the early days for this Spider-Man, but these crimes must still be relevant. So let's add a crime from the 2004 Spider-Man 2 video game, the Purse Snatcher. Maybe while you're swinging at a low altitude, you can see an NPC steal a purse from a civilian and start running away with it. To complete the crime, you have to swing, zip to the purse snatcher, and then return the purse to the victim. And we can vary this type of crime where instead of a purse snatcher, it could be a bicycle thief. Yeah, it's not a complicated crime, but it's realistic and true to the Spider-Man experience. Every Spider-Man deals with this kind of stuff. Another quick crime we can add is an ATM or bank robbery, where, similar to the last crime, it can be just one criminal trying to rob an ATM and you have to stop him. Or, for more variety, it can be a group of 2 to 3 criminals trying to rob a bank and could utilize the same indoor type of crime that we see in the first game with armed robbery. It would also be fun if these criminals don't even try to fight Spider-Man and either try to run away in different directions or get in a car and drive off. Mechanics we've seen before that are missing in this game. These simple crimes may not add a lot, but they build depth to New York. But what about outside of New York? And I'm not talking about Queens and Brooklyn. Let's take a look at the map of Spider-Man 2. Crimes can happen here or here. That leaves about a quarter of our map without crimes. Obviously, swinging and traversing around the water hasn't been perfected yet, but maybe by the time Spider-Man 3 comes out, Insomniac can figure out how to make traversing across the river easier. And when that happens, a quick crime for Spider-Man to address could be a stolen boat. Similar to the high-speed chase, some criminals have stolen a boat and are speeding away with it. You have to reach the boat and stop it with some QTEs to complete the crime, and we can also use some of the improvements I introduced in the improved high-speed chase for this crime too. Or just keep it simple considering the bare environment it will be in. Regardless, adding a small quick crime to this area of the map that's unused will make this world come more alive while adding crime variety. Now for the next part of this video, we're gonna move away from crimes. As much as I complained, Insomniac's already done a decent enough job at some of those bigger crimes, but let's talk about other ways to make New York feel less hollow. Because after all, Spider-Man does more than just fight crime. When an accident occurs, our friendly neighborhood hero would usually step in to help. Taking inspiration from the 2004 Spider-Man 2 game, let's add the lost balloon. While swinging around, a child may accidentally let go of their balloon. Your goal as Spider-Man is to catch up to this balloon as it continues to rise vertically, and then bring it back to the child. This small act of kindness is exactly what Spider-Man would do if he saw it happen, and I thought it would be interesting and fun to include more events where you have to raise your elevation quickly. Another similar higher elevation accident is the crane malfunction. There are tons of cranes sprinkled across New York, so it would be interesting to see the endgame use some of these construction sites for a small accident, where the crane starts to malfunction and the operator is dangling from the top. As Spider-Man, you must swing up and rescue the dangling operator before he falls, bring him to the ground, and then swing up to fix the crane with some webs. A similar event like this was used in the 2004 Spider-Man 2 game, and given how much construction the city goes through, I could see this happening, and why wouldn't Spider-Man get involved? The last small accident I'd enjoy seeing is the return of Howard's pigeons in some capacity. Perhaps every once in a while, Spider-Man finds one of Howard's pigeons flying around in the city, and like the old days, you have to catch the pigeon to return him to his home. Small and simple is the goal with these kinds of accidents. Not every alert that Spider-Man addresses has to be a big shootout or a symbiote horde. Having Spider-Man address small-time accidents in his city, like doing something kind for a child, saving a construction worker, or finding an old friend's pigeons, are what add to the Spider-Man experience. Now let's take it up a notch. Small accidents are ways to add quick fun in the world, but why not add some long-form fun too? Similar to the aforementioned chopper malfunction or cyber attack crimes. Some cool dynamic accidents I'd like to see coded in are ones that are integrated within New York City and not just added on top of it, such as the building fire. While swinging throughout the city, you'll get alerted that a building is on fire and you only have a few minutes to get to the building, get inside, save the people who are stuck, and put out any fires. We can make the accident more complex, where after saving people and stopping the fires in time, you have to chase after the arsonist in a high-speed chase. Compounding some crimes together is a great mechanic to build a unique experience with each crime or accident. Another interesting urgent accident could be the runaway train. There are a few locations in the Spider-Man map where subway trains are found above ground, so maybe this would only trigger if you're near an above ground subway track. But in this accident, Spider-Man must swing to the front of the train and use some QTEs to stop it within a certain time limit. It really depends on how it could be coded and developed within the confines of the game's pre-existing build, but hopefully Insomniac could figure something like this out, because Spider-Man and train accidents are a combo too perfect to avoid in the third game. Remember how we're missing crimes on a quarter of our map? Well, let's add some urgent accidents to fill in this gap a little more. Consider the bridge accident. I know we've gotten a fair share of bridge content in this Spider-Man world already, but it would be cool to have a recurring accident related to them. After all, supervillains don't have to be the only reason bridges are used. Some car accidents or collisions could occur, leading to the cars teetering off the edge. So when you get this alert while swinging around, you'd have a specific time limit before the cars fall off the bridge. Your goal is to swing over to the bridge and web up the cars before they fall and save any civilians from immediate danger. Bridges are somewhat iconic with Spider-Man, and there are a few bridges to play around with in the game, so it would be a good idea to incorporate them more in the endgame. Let's fill up this part of the map once more by adding in an oil tanker accident. In this accident, an oil tanker that's passing through the East River would run into major misfortune, and it's going to explode within a certain amount of time. Upon getting this alert and receiving the time warning, you have to swing to the tanker and bring a few workers back to the mainland safely before it explodes. To add variety, consider that half of every oil tanker accidents you come across will have criminals who purposefully cause the explosion. Compounding this urgent accident with the stolen boat crime is just another great way to spice up the gameplay loop. And while we're talking about how we can improve the gameplay loop, it would be interesting to see the companion system used more adaptively. These urgent accidents have time limits, and say you arrive just a bit too late to any of them, then it would be a perfect opportunity to show how the other Spider-Man has already stepped in and could use your help. Finding the other Spider-Man in random crimes is fun, but it would make the world feel more real if there's sometimes a reason he shows up. If you're taking too long to complete a crime, the other Spider-Man should come in and help you out, especially for crimes and accidents with time limits. These urgent accidents hold up to their namesake by adding urgency to the Spider-Man experience, something which is greatly missing from the current state of the game, since I can just watch a civilian get mugged for a few minutes and then leave. It's not like the police are coming anyway. Being the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man means looking out for the community and helping those in need, even when their lives are not in danger. In the existing games, this side of Spider-Man shows up in FNSM side missions or Brooklyn Visions missions, but maybe we can have some more recurring events that you can take part in for fun, such as pizza delivery. Say Spider-Man's favorite pizza joint is running late for one of its deliveries. If it doesn't reach the address within a certain amount of time, the pizza will be free. So Spider-Man helps out, and that just means swinging from one side of the city to the other before the given time limit expires. To make this event a little more complex, we can follow what the old Spider-Man 2 game did, where you can't do tricks or you'll ruin the pizza. Delivering a pizza just feels so classically Spider-Man. Maybe it's because I grew up with Spider-Man 2, but shockingly, something like this hasn't been implemented into these games yet. Another timed event that can occur while swinging throughout the city can be the late interview, where a civilian is running late for their interview, so Spider-Man offers to swing them across the city so they'll make it in time. A variation of this type of event could be a man whose wife is giving birth at a hospital across the city. Swinging these civilians can look exactly like how it does in the current game when you're swinging hurt civilians to ambulances. Adding in the timer just creates a challenge for the player to reach the destination quicker. Something I personally miss while swinging around in the endgame is having to swing to a destination, because I love to think about the best way to swing there. So if the game could recurringly offer these events to reach a destination within a time limit, it could add a lot more replayability to the gameplay loop in the endgame. I call these special events, but really they're just a miscellaneous bag of ideas I thought that would make the world more fun, like the ambush. In Spider-Man 2, a big faction you often fight against is the hunters, yet I never felt like I was being hunted. It would have been fun if, while swinging, some hunters shot a net at me and ambushed me. It would have just added a sense of danger and raised my awareness of the world. After all, they're masters of hunting, so why isn't this sort of thing happening? For some reason, Spider-Man is always one step ahead of the hunters. He's always coming to them instead of the other way around, which kind of destroys the reputation of Kraven and his faction. What better way to make the world feel more dynamic and make the hunters feel more scary than if they could just ambush you at any moment? Similarly, I thought about the special event, Taskmaster Returns. I wanted to incorporate more mid-swinging events, and I thought a cool way to keep you on your toes while traversing would be if a drone could randomly show up and start chasing you. There aren't many moments when you're the one being chased in the game, so it could be fun to include an event where you have to try to swing fast to avoid taking damage. And this would also be a great way to incorporate the loop-de-loop and give it some use, as the only way to get behind the drone that's chasing you would be to perform that loop-de-loop to go around and behind it, and now you're the one chasing it. Also, this doesn't have to be Taskmaster's drone, it can be anyone's drone, but the primary pain point I'm trying to address are those surprise mid-swing events. These types of events existed in games like Days Gone, where you can randomly run into a tripwire in the open world and get ambushed. They can happen at any time and are just meant to keep the player always engaged and never bored, even when they're not responding to a crime or an alert. Along with these crimes, accidents, and events, I would just like to mention a few more mechanics I'd like to see kept and implemented so that the world can feel a bit more complex. These include running thugs, hostage situations, enemy reinforcements, compounding crimes, and alternative alerts. I've mentioned the other mechanics before, so let's talk about alternative alerts briefly. In the current version, crimes are alerted to you via the FNSM app as someone reports a crime that is happening. However, it would be cool to just come upon some crimes yourself while swinging as well. That dangling crane operator is gonna scream loud enough for you to hear. That bank robbery is gonna have some gunshot sounds, and who's gonna report a child's lost balloon? Perhaps even the other Spider-Man can alert you to a crime. How fun would it be if while swinging, the other Spider-Man started swinging beside you and told you that he was just on his way to a crime or accident? Maybe he'd even ask to race you there. Using different ways of signaling crimes or accidents is a great way to blend these aspects of the game more smoothly and create that alive world we want to feel. So there you have it. These are just some of the ways Insomniac can improve crimes in the next game. And come to think of it, I've only mentioned a few crimes on the list because Spider-Man 2's endgame isn't exactly lacking in crimes. In fact, it's got an abundance of them. I mean, even if they are lacking in quality, you can't deny that the crimes work as intended. However, the world is missing those simple crimes, those accidents without a perpetrator, those events where you help the community and the city. Spider-Man's not here to just beat up bad guys. If I wanted to do that, I'd play the Arkham games. What I really want for Spider-Man 3 is to embody the Spider-Man experience. As he represents more than fighting crime, he's a symbol of doing the right thing. He's relentless in his journey of becoming better and doing better, even when it costs his personal life dearly. He lets friends down, he almost always screws up, but he never gives up. And that works for the main story, but let's not forget that he also delivers pizza for his favorite pizza joint to keep their business alive. He rescues the cat of a bodega shop he frequents. He keeps a woman's grandfather company at the park until she comes along. The story, the gameplay, and the open world should all align on reflecting Spider-Man perfectly. Of course, some sides of our favorite webhead are more difficult to capture in a gameplay loop, which is probably why Insomniac has stuck to making crimes the only event that occurs in the endgame. But there will always be a dangling crane operator, there will always be a child who lost their balloon, and there will always be someone running late for their interview. Insomniac has made some great games already, and they included a lot of stuff in Spider-Man 2 that people have been begging for since the first game, so ultimately my faith is with them. And I guess in the end it doesn't really matter because there will always be room for improvement and there will always be someone there to complain and nitpick like me. But we all want the same thing, just a great Spider-Man game. Let me know if you guys have any ideas on what you would add or fix in the next game, or if you just have any thoughts on some of my suggestions. If you've made it this far, I assume that you'll like some of my videos on my channel, so it would mean a lot if you've subscribed and liked this video. Thanks!